Hakuna Matata. It's Saturday, March 23rd, and not every decision is the best one that you could make. But so, um, here's what I realized after doing all this. I had been focused on this method of welding in a pocket for the door lock for quite a while because I hadn't thought about bending my hinges yet to move the door over and give me more room. Before I moved the door over, those screws on that plate almost touched this. So that's how much I moved it over, okay? So, I started this and I held off on doing this installation until I was sure I wanted to cut out the relief in this piece of metal, which that gave me a little bit more room over here. Yeah, I gotta take that back. This is actually setting in there a little more than a 1/16 of an inch deeper, so I gained that space also, not just with the hinges. But when it came to making this, I'm going to call it the receiver, I guess, for the bolt, I should have waited and thought about that for a while, because what I could have done, this piece came with the lock and it's supposed to be installed together with this on top of it for strength. I actually could have just installed this now that I got all the space in there, right? But if not that, I could have very easily duplicated this out of a piece of steel, using that round piece of pipe that I used there for the body, and then just a piece of 16 gauge sheet metal, and then I could have drilled the hole and screwed this in place, sealing it with Gorilla Adhesive, and it would have been absolutely perfect, and I would not have had to deal with repairing this now, which the glue that they used to install this sheet metal melted from the heat of the welding. So my first shot was using Gorilla Adhesive, and I cleaned in here the best I could with some rubbing alcohol, squirted a bunch of the stuff in there, clamped it with a piece of wood. I took the screws out so that it would sit flat. I used a piece of thin plywood so it would curve along with the curve in the body. And after a couple of days of sitting, when I took the clamps off, it didn't bond. So I've got to redo this now, which is probably going to exacerbate the stretch in this metal. And yeah, so I got more work to do. That's a project for today. If I can get this done today, which I should probably be able to do more than just that today, but if I can get at least this fixed today, I'll feel good, and then I could move forward. The next steps beyond this are going to be taking, I bought an extra piece of this angle, 1 1/4 by 1/8 angle, and that's going to go it's going to go in here against this, and it'll be notched out around this and whatever else I put in there, and then it's going to be screwed to this and glued in place with Gorilla Adhesive so it'll be sealed, and it's going to be on the flat here with the angle this way for a place for the door seals to go, and it'll more or less approximate where that piece of steel is. That's welded in place from the original bus configuration. And also it'll more or less approximate the surface where this is. So I don't have a short piece that I've cut yet, so I could size up here and kind of show you how it goes, but you know, the angle's going to come in here, and it's going to be the this surface of the angle will be flush with this, so it's going to go a little bit beyond in order to make that happen, right? And the same was up there. You see that upper piece is toward the inside of the bus of flush, which, yeah, I don't know. We're gonna put some thinking on that and see how that goes, but we'll work on this first. It'll give us time to be thinking about the other stuff in the meantime. All right, we're back on the bus, and so I'm kind of at a turning point here. So the screws that they used here are not the same screws that are on the side of the bus, which that's one of those that I put in, and there's the original screws. They're smaller. Didn't realize, it doesn't help when your eyes don't work that well anymore. So I was jamming one in here and broke the damn head off. So we had to drill that out. And then I got one of these in there. That's when I realized that these are different screws than those. And so since this one has been enlarged, and I probably don't have any more of these, we're going to be stuck with using different screws in this range. So if you don't already know from watching earlier, let me take these out here. Oh, by the way, this little rigid drill works good, man. I mean, impact driver, I should say. Okay. All right. So I ended up putting a little bit of grease on this thing to get it to go in, because I didn't want to break another head off. All right, so now you can compare and see how, where the hell are you? There it is. Dee-dee-dee. All right, so, I mean, I recovered here. This has still got the original bond at this point anyway. But I discovered what the failure was in the bond here. And here it is. When I was cleaning out today, there's the grill adhesive on top of the old adhesive, which popped loose, probably from the heat. So the grill adhesive didn't fail. Bad preparation, operator error on my part. So I have a decision to make. I've been using putty knife to crack that open, and this is all here to pry it open. My air compressor to blow the crud out that I've been cleaning. But mainly, I found that a jigsaw blade, because it's got the set on it. Where the heck is my, okay. The edges of this do a great job of getting in there and scraping it down to the bare metal. All right. So I got to make a decision if I want to try to glue this again and not put any extra screws in here, or do I go ahead and put some extra screws in here? I'd have to put 2. I don't know what this bend is all about here, but they're 9 inches apart, and when I had a screw in here and a screw in here and put this here, like as if there's a screw halfway between, see what's going on here? It won't go in. So if I made like I had 2 screws in there, it held it flat. So the fix for this is going to be one of 2 things. Glue it again with Gorilla adhesive and a piece of plywood and leave it for a couple days for it to fully cure. At which point, I mean, it's not a lot of force, but it'll be under continual tension. Or just go ahead and put 2 more screws in there. I think I'll just do the screws so I'll be done with this thing. So yeah, I'm just making up my mind now. I'm going to drill this and prep it, get 2 screws in, get all the screws so that they'll thread in without breaking the damn heads off, and make sure I got all the screws that I want. Fully prep this. I'm going to goop it up with Gorilla adhesive and put the screws in, and we're going to call this finished for the day. Alright, got it. I went ahead and caulked the rest of that seam all the way up there just for shits and grins. And I put 4 screws, or added 2 extra screws to just hold it down where it needs to go. And in fact, I didn't tighten the screws down tight. I tightened them down to kind of match the original gap that was left in there. So I'll come back and caulk the rest of this after this is cured up. I didn't want to mess around here, and I didn't clean this. I want to make sure I clean it before I put the caulk down there. So yeah, I'm happy with that. I call it a good save, and we're gonna just leave that alone and move on to other things. Now I gotta remember what the heck it was I was working on. I guess it was, yeah, I was thinking about overcoming this little thing right here. I know you're probably wondering why did I put this here, I guess. Because if I put this, there's nowhere to put it up here. And if I put it down here, it's going to be too low because inside the bus, the bed is going to be about that high. So this was pretty much the only place I could put it. So we're going to have to see what we can do to overcome this. I'm thinking about just putting a knob on this and getting rid of this thing altogether. Let me think about that and do some experimenting, and I'll show you what I come up with. Alright, so I had this off already once. I rebuilt this. I guess you could say rebuilt. It was riveted, and it was kind of a dried out mess on the inside, so I took it completely apart. This part with the square hole in it is a gear, and the actual latch that moves in and out is a rack, and when the gear spins, the rack just rolls in and out. It's that simple. But without grease, it wasn't working that well. So early on when I got the bus, this was one of the things I rebuilt, and I put these stainless steel screws in here with the lock nuts, which that's kind of like my signature. And I remember what this thing looks like. I remembered before I took this thing apart that this was welded onto the square shaft, and that this has a roll pin in it there that you, and I think this might be the other side of the roll pin with this. Looks like someone cut that off with a die grinder. I think it might go all the way through. I'm not sure. But I can't get in there to beat the roll pin out because it's recessed. And I can't get this off to work on it any easier. So I think the only workaround is I'm going to have to take my die grinder and cut this weld, which is going to be a pain in the ass because I don't want to damage the shaft. And then I could get this out, get it up on the bench and clean it up, and if I want to, maybe I'll get this roll pin out of here and put a screw in it or something so I can maintain it in the future. Well, I guess I won't if I cut all this crap off, but I do want to put, if I can figure out what to use, a seal around the shaft over here so rainwater won't just drip in here and get in the hole and get inside the door and make it rust. I have options. I mean, I thought about putting a rubber flap and attaching it across the top and just cover the handle as a rain shield, but I mean, that's kind of hokey. But we're going to keep on moving forward here and figure out what we're going to do. But yeah, I'm pretty certain that removing this all, I mean, I could just lob this off right here and call it a day, but I do want to improve the sealing of this handle. So if I can put a little more time into getting this weld off enough that I could pull this off these freaking washers that they put in here, then I'll be able to pull the whole thing out and work on it and clean it up and make it a little bit more like my style, a little bit nicer. And then I'll think about what kind of knob to put on here that won't be too, I don't know, obtrusive, I guess, because this is going to be, this area is going to be where the side of the bed is. So yeah, there's all that. And I've also would like to have the option of insulating this and maybe putting some wood on it, trim around the window. And I can, because I've got a lot of length left in these screws, and I got a lot of length left in the little metal tang that goes up inside the lock. So whatever I do, I can put this up on top of it and it'll look nice. Okay, well, here we go again. All right, so here's the handle in the back of the bus. Technically, I could just put this back in, but it's rusty as hell. I gouged the shit out of it when I was cutting, and it would sure be great if I can get the handle off. So I'm going to try and see if I can drill out the roll pin from there and not break off this $20 mill bit. Okay, I got it out. So if anyone out there has got a Thomas bus and wants to know how this thing works, there you go. So this is an 1/8 inch punch here, I believe. Let's see here. Yeah, 1/8 inch. So there's an 1/8 inch hole through here at an angle that just catches the corner of the square shaft, which looks like this. And you can see where I drilled through there. Kind of missed, I guess. But I had to oversize the hole on this side to, I don't know, however 64th that is, in order to have success. So yeah, okay. So I saved the handle. I found these on eBay. Someone's selling 94 of them for $1,500. So saved myself that much anyway, or having to make my own, which I was getting ready to do anyway. But here's what I'm thinking. I can get a grommet to fit in that outer hole there, this side. And if my shaft is round through that grommet, that'll make a nice seal. And then the shaft on the other side of that grommet would have to be square to fit that handle. And then on this side of that round part of the shaft, it would have to be square to fit in here. So I'm thinking, I do have the capability of making my own shaft with square shaft with a round spot in the middle. And I might have some stainless steel bar to make it out of too. What do we got down here? There's a piece of stainless that's kind of big. aluminum. Aluminum would be okay, I guess. Oh, look, I think there's a piece of brass in the back over there. I can make a brass. Brass is easy to machine. See if I can grab that. Yeah, look at that. Here's a piece of brass. So just kind of stand that up over here. Think about that for a while. Because that would actually be pretty easy to do. I think I'll take a trip to the hardware store and see if they've got any grommets that fit that size hole. And then I'll take care of having this sealed up. And the handle's removable now. I can prep and paint this better. Yeah. All right. I'll take a trip to the hardware store and see if I can find a good grommet. All right. How about that? I gotta hand it to these guys at True Value Hardware stores. They got more hardware and a better selection than Home Depot and Lowe's. So this is the exact size grommet that I need for here. I need to take that little burr off, and it gives me a 5/8 hole, so I could make a shaft with a 5/8 OD, and then in just the right places turn it down to square. That'll fit, which I believe is 1/2 inch square. It'll fit in here, right? And I need something to keep the shaft from moving in and out, and I pretty much got that figured out. Where the shaft goes through here, this is the original latch, by the way. I just took it apart again because I realized I don't need, let me take this off. Oh, yeah, great. So I don't need this manual lock anymore. This used to just slide up and back and overhang where the latch goes, and you know, it's a lock. And I want to remove this, but this is also a shim that holds this rack up against the gear. So I'm just gonna like table this project for a while and then pick that thing all off the floor and clean it. And I wanna just let this sit in my head for a while, because I could pretty easily install a regular doorknob in here like this is installed, put it right here, and then just cover this with a piece of sheet metal, same way we did this, and you know, that'll have the nice feature of being able to just slam this door and it'll shut like a car door, you know. I like that idea. I don't know if I want to work that hard because I got to cut a lot of stuff out of here to make it work. But so I'm just going to stop for now on that, and I'm going to switch to the angle metal that has to attach to here for my seals. Okay, I made my first cut here. This is the 1¼ inch angle, and here's the piece that's going to fit in here, something like that. It's just a tad long, intentional. It's because I'm going to put a bend in it. It might fit after the bend. But what I wanted to show you at this point was just how much I have to bend this thing. So yeah, let me switch hands here real quick. I'm going to use this piece of metal like a straight edge. Okay. All right. So what I think I'm going to do is use the bus to bend the metal. So if I clamp this piece of steel right here, bottom, I can use another clamp to pull it at the top. So we're going to try that first and see how that goes. All right, so I learned that I don't need to bend this piece of angle to the point where it's pre-bent to fit the arc. I learned that if I mount it at the top and the bottom, I can just deflect it with my hand. It's springy enough that I can just bend it, and then I'll be able to put the rest of the screws in, and I should be in like Flynn with this thing. So what I did, I took another trip to the hardware store, and I got these number 1024 flathead countersunks, and I'm going to be countersinking the holes so that the screw heads are flat with this. So for starters, I'm lining up the top of the metal straight with the bus, which is I'm a hair off there, and the fit is okay. I notched it out here, and I cut it short here to make room because there's a radius where that weld is. So rather than dorking around with it, I just cut it short. I'll fill that in with caulk, and when we're all done, we won't see it. The weather strip will be there anyway. But so I drilled the angle all the way down with the size hole that you would use if you're going to thread the material. So now these are going to be the perfect guides for drilling into the bus and getting those holes in exactly the right place and the right size for threading. And once I get all those holes drilled, then I'll come back and enlarge them. I may not have to actually, by the time I get done countersinking them, they might be opening up their diameter enough to fit. I don't know. We'll see that in a minute. But yeah, I was going to say something else, but I forgot what it was. So, oh yeah, what I'm doing here is I'm getting one screw at the top and one screw at the bottom, and I'm going to put this thing into place using clamps and whatnot, and put in one screw. And then I'm going to close the door and verify that it's matching the curvature of the door, because that's what I really want to match, is the curvature of the door, not the curvature of the frame. So yeah, I guess I could back up a little bit. I took this piece, this was the original weather strip mount, and I put it and I held it in place with clamps to the bus door frame there, and I scribed it. I put a scratch in it, and what I found was it seems to be, looking at it this way, a very even arc, and its middle point is right about halfway between, I mean its high point, I guess I should say, is right about halfway between the top and the bottom. So this, I was just doing this to get my head wrapped around what I was working on earlier until I decided to do this. So let me go ahead and I'm going to put a hole up there and thread it, and then once we get the screw in that one, then we'll do the bottom one. The little bit of a challenge we've got here is I have to hold this piece of metal up so this gap is touching. If I take the clamp off, it drops because of the same phenomenon I have here. At the bottom, it's the same way. I had to cut it in the clear to make some room. So yeah, getting the top one in there first is going to be the good starter, and then the rest will be easy. Okay, so here's what she looks like. I got one screw at the bottom. One at the top. And now for this, see how I could just squeeze that with my hand and bend it? So it's a little more than I can do just by squeezing with one hand, but I'm going to put a clamp on that now. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to just match the distance between the edge and the two edges there and down here. And you know, I was also thinking, yeah, I've got these holes in the back. I could put something in here right there because it's already got a screw in it. Put a piece of metal across there to hold that in place. Yeah, that's what we'll do. And then I'll double check the fit on the door. All right, I got it more or less in place. All right, and I'm using the original latch reinforcement plate with that one screw right there. So now what we're going to do, this might be a little tough because it's sprung out right there. We're going to close the door. Oh, dang, I got that. I hope that doesn't hit. Let's see what happens here. There it is. 10. So now if I go on the inside, I'm going to double check the spacing. Alright, so this space is where the door seal goes. And shoot, I kind of like it. It's a little bit wider right here. Like it needs to have a little bit more bow in right there. Oops. Oh, that thing is hitting. We're going to have to make an adjustment. And we're also a little bit thick right there. But you know what? Kind of like what I'm seeing here. So actually, yeah. So let's take a look at what's going on with this thing. That's gonna have to be notched out for that. Because it was, yeah, that's okay. I can deal with that. So what I think I'm going to do, I think I'm going to put one screw right here. If I drill that now, because I was happy with it, was right here. Over here, yeah, you can kind of see it too. When you look down, this gap widens a little bit over here. So I'm gonna get the one screw in up here right now. I'm gonna drill that because that's like the midpoint, right? Maybe I'll do this one because I think actually the middle of the bow is a little bit above center. So I'll drill that one right now, and then we'll have to remove everything so I could thread or countersink this and thread that, and then we'll reinstall everything. We won't need this anymore because this screw will hold it, and then we'll see about maybe bending over here just a little bit more, like a 1/16 of an inch. And yeah, it's coming out great. Okay, I had to succumb, and it really was no big deal. I just took the thing loose and put it in the vise and pulled on it until I got it really close to the right arc. So now there won't be a lot of pressure on the screws. And I'm gonna go back and do the reinstall and then do the final tweaks like I was doing already, but this time there just won't be so much side pressure on the screws. What happened here was this one had a lot of side pressure and it was actually deflecting the screw, and you could see that where the countersunk wasn't sitting straight in the hole there. Okay, we're calling it a night. It was a great day, man. Great day, beautiful weather. Got this thing all squared away. Actually, before I go and call it a night, I'm gonna clean that off with some alcohol and give it a shot of that self-etching primer just so we don't get any rust on this overnight. But we got this door stop in here. Super excited how nice it came out. I'm glad I sat on that and thought about it for a while. I mean, it's not fully installed. This is like the last mock-up, I guess you'd call it. I still got to clean some of the old gunk out of here and then prime. I guess I won't prime up there. I got some exposed metal up there where I had to use a rotary burr and take some of the weld out in the corner, and same thing at the bottom, but we'll let the caulk, the grill adhesive, seal that up. So I'm not going to do the final install on this piece until I'm absolutely sure what I'm going to do with the doorknob situation here. If I'm going to give up on the original latch, repair all this stuff like I want to have it, or not really so much repair it, but modify it to the way I want to have it, or just use a home style doorknob. I mean, I got a freaking doorknob right there. All I got to do is find a catch for it. This is probably a really, really expensive doorknob. I don't know what brand. What's the key say on there? RUSSWIN. Something like that. Anyway, I mean, this is like serious solid stuff. This is a leftover when my father was still working as a carpenter. This was probably some leftover piece that he appropriated, I guess you'd call it. What a fine lock this is. I mean, we're talking solid brass construction. This is not steel. This is probably like a $300 or $400 doorknob. I hope I can find the piece for it. Anyway, we're gonna pack it in, clean up. Great day, super excited.